This is Hannibal from the HannibalTV.com with a daily wrestling news update. Wearing one of my Hannibal t-shirts that are available on our merchandise store, which the link you can find in the description of this video, as well as the HannibalTV.com. I'm here for my daily wrestling news update. Nothing really interesting happened yesterday, so I didn't do one yesterday. Raw last night did a 0.55 rating. Bobby Roode, who's now known as Robert Roode, even though he was last seen on WWE TV back in January, somehow appeared on Raw last night and was given a title shot against Drew McIntyre. So make sense of that. He hasn't had a match since January, and that match took place on a different brand, even though they always mix the brands anyways. But for some reason, not wrestling for like 3/4 of a year made him good enough for a title shot, which shows you how meaningless the title is now. Another thing WWE does, which to me really devalues the title, is we all know Tampa Bay won the Stanley Cup. And I guess once again, all the Tampa Bay Lightning get WWE title belts, just like they do with the NBA teams and the baseball teams and so forth. It's like, why? I don't see Dana White doing that with the UFC title. Your team wins the Stanley Cup. You all can now hold the UFC title. I don't know. It seems to just completely diminish the title. Rob Van Dam and his girlfriend Katie Forbes are now free agents. So my guess is if AEW was smart, they would pick up those two. I'm a big supporter of Rob Van Dam. I've posted numerous of his matches from PCW Ultra on this channel, including one recently, Rob Van Dam against MVP, and one of Rob Van Dam against John Morrison. I've also done numerous interviews with him on this channel. It would be nice to see him in AEW because, let's face the facts, nobody watches Impact. So being on there is really only good for whatever pay you're getting. Honestly, I didn't even hear of anything he did in Impact. So let's hope that he goes to AEW. I guess he could go to WWE if he was under a part-time contract that would allow him to have his own agreement, because we know how some of the part-timers don't have to pass the drug test, and for some reason, even though weed is legal in Canada and weed is far less dangerous than alcohol, it is on the banned substance list at WWE. So it would seem brutal at this point in RVD's career to have to deal with not being able to have cannabis. New Japan president and CEO Harold Mays is gone from the company, and now the president of New Japan of America has taken over the Japanese version of the company too. I pinned the link to the top of the comments, and I also put the link in the description. The United Wrestling Network is now working with the NWA. They did a pay-per-view tonight. They do pay-per-views every Tuesday night. And as I said, I'm disillusioned with WWE. AEW did not become the old school wrestling that it had promised it was going to be. Ring of Honor and Impact are unwatchable to me. MLW isn't even running anymore. So I have become an affiliate now of the United Wrestling Network, who is working with the NWA for these pay-per-views. So if any of you guys want to buy one of those pay-per-views, which are available for as little as $7.99. Please use my affiliate link, which is at thehannibaltv.com, in the description of this video or pinned to the top of the comments of this video. Because although I've been on the record as truly despising Nick Aldis, I do think there needs to be other companies out there. So I will give this United Wrestling Network concept my support. I do know some people involved with it that I like a lot, so I do wish them luck. And by the way, expect to see some NWA and United Wrestling Network stars on this channel to talk about their matches on the pay-per-views starting very soon, possibly as early as this week. Speaking of this week, I have 3 interviews coming up tomorrow. I did one today as well. God, why can't I even remember? Oh, Melissa Anderson, cheerleader Melissa Anderson, was today. Former Impact wrestler, 2-time Shine champion. Yesterday, my favorite interview of 2020 was Boss Rutan, who is like one of my heroes. So I really hope to have him on again. That was an absolute honor and privilege to interview former UFC champion, UFC Hall of Famer Boss Rutan yesterday. Highly suggest you people check it out. He did shoot on people. He did shoot on people in that interview. And Tyler Rex, who I interviewed Sunday, I didn't even know much about him, but he had some interesting stuff to say, and I had great feedback on that interview. Tomorrow at 2:30 p.m., the lovely UK wrestling personality, Just Jesse, is going to talk to me about the UK wrestling scene. Very shapely, gorgeous lady and very knowledgeable about wrestling. At 4 p.m. Eastern, Jesse's at 2:30, 4 p.m. Teal Piper, the daughter of Roddy Piper, who my dog is named after. She's going to be with me at 4 p.m. And at 10 p.m., Chemo, former UFC fighter. He's fought in Japan. He's one of the MMA pioneers. That's going to be at 10 p.m. Eastern. So I got a lot of good interviews coming up. I'll get into some of your questions. John Miller says WWE is dead. I think that's a consensus. It's just brutal, absolutely brutal. Mike Light Gold Dust versus RVD as I drink my kombucha here. It's raining out, so I might not run tonight. I'm probably just going to use my punching bag. Richard Mins says, good interview with Melissa Anderson. She was on the same card as me on Heat, right? Very, very possible. That's all a blur to me. It's very possible. She lives in Las Vegas. I was on that Heat show in Las Vegas. Very well. I forgot that I'd met her, but there's a good chance, Richard, that I met her that night. Dan Masters, who is the PCW Ultra ring announcer, the second coming of Gary Michael Capetta. He says every time the media puts out RVD is a free agent, he starts getting messages. Believe me, independent promoters across the country, you can't afford them, particularly now with COVID, where you can't even really have live crowds unless you're in some of the states that allow it, like Tennessee. I've heard he's like $15,000 for an appearance. Which, if you have the money that RVD has, why do it for less? Why put your body at risk for less? But yes, there was another piece of news today that was brought up in the Melissa Anderson interview. Joey Ryan is filing a lawsuit against some of his, I guess all of his 17 or so accusers related to the speaking out allegations against him related to lost wages. And Melissa Anderson brought up, like, what independent wrestlers are making any money right now with COVID? There's hardly any shows running. So how can you claim lost wages, Joey Ryan, when it's not even a normal circumstance right now? Like, we can't even promote here in Canada. In Quebec this week, they just tightened up restrictions. Bars are closed, strip clubs are closed, and it's going to be like 28 days. Restaurants are only available for takeout. Like, here in Canada, even though we have less COVID rates than in the US, they're tightening up again. So we're not in a situation where you can claim legitimate lost wages when there's hardly any shows running. But good luck if you're not making money trying to sue 17 people, because my Abdullah the Butcher lawsuit has cost me well over $100,000 in legal fees at this point, and I've collected zero. So have fun trying to get that lawsuit going for years and years and years against 17 people with no income coming in and funding that. Ralph says RVD is from Battle Creek. Yes, he lives in LA now. Richard Mans, RVD to GNW. Well, as Dan Masters said, RVD charges about 15 grand American, maybe more now, which is probably over 20 grand Canadian, because our dollar is worth shit. So I guarantee you we would not make our money back on him. And I'm not holding that against RVD, but it's just not fundable. If some rich, wealthy guy wants to see RVD against Bloodhunter, wants to donate $15,000, hell, I'll cover the plane ticket and hotel above that. But we can't afford RVD in Great North Wrestling. As I see, I just got a $10 tip from Mike Hamilton. Thank you, Mike. He says, thanks for the Tyler Rex interview. Seems like a great guy. He does seem like a really nice guy. I agree on that. Neil says he just saw a very creepy WWE highlight package where the crowds were replaced by TV screens with crowd faces on them. Yeah, that's the world we're living in. And unfortunately, it really sucks. Yes, Ralph, I am a busy man. Barlight Broker says that guy was good. I think he's talking about RVD. Donnie Brasco says he wished Boss Rutan would have slapped JBL. Boss Rutan does not like JBL, by the way, because Boss is close with Morrow, and Morrow was bullied by JBL. Melvin Cash is going to get high. Enjoy that. John Miller, can pro wrestling survive if WWE goes under? They're not going under. They're making more revenue than ever. They'll just get less popular. If WWE disappeared, it would be good for the pro wrestling business. It would be phenomenal for the pro wrestling business, because when you watch that shit on TV, it just turns people off of wrestling. The last event that I always put up posters for my own events, because I don't trust anyone but myself, other than maybe a select few that have contacts in certain locations to put posters up. But some people were like completely trashing wrestling when I was asking to put posters up in their business because of what they associate wrestling with, because of the shit, the absolute shit that's on TV now, that's just killing the business from the top down, because people associate wrestling with what they see on TV. Somebody says that's how they've done all the shows for NXT related to the faces on the screens. Yes. Heel effects is MLW still around, but they haven't run since March. They don't have a new date announced, and they haven't paid any of their roster I know of since March. If there are some that are paid, good, but I know Davey Boy Smith Jr. and others have not made a cent, and they're stuck in their contracts. Davey Boy Smith Jr. could easily have gone to WWE by now if MLW would have let him out of their contract. Melvin says, F running, get high. I got to get in shape, my friend. I can't reveal all the reasons, but got to get in bigger and better shape, better cardio shape. Jay Miller, is White Rhino any good? Honestly, I haven't had any of that strain for so long. I couldn't tell you. It was good at the time, from what I recall. Richard Mins brought up that cheerleader Melissa fought Victoria. Barlight Broker, I have a 3-hour interview with Dutch Mantel on here. Search it up. Just like somebody said, interview Ken Shamrock the other day. I have one. Crystal Garden, who sent me some weed last month, I believe, says White Rhino is good. That wasn't the strain that he sent me, though. He sent me something else. How 0.55. That's the rating. That's the Nielsen rating that WWE had. Only a couple more questions because there's some pretty crazy questions on here. Barlight Broker does not like the wrestling talent pool. Leroy, do I talk with Easton Page? Never been a fan of him. He's been very overrated, in my opinion. Melvin Cash says, come down to Georgia. Go kick Abdullah's windows out of his car. I'll go after him the legal way. He's got a lot of problems to deal with at the moment. Patrick J is excited about the Forest of Fear coming next month to the Hannibal TV. You will see the Blood Hunters Forest of Fear match series. Classic Wrestling has been watching 1984 Mid-South Wrestling on YouTube. Better than anything out there today. You will not have an argument with me on that. Mr. Premium 2002. How was the funeral of Animal? If I went, as I said earlier, the borders closed. I live in Canada. I had no way of going to that funeral. I know it did happen today, though. Who was my favorite opponent? I don't have any favorite opponents. I didn't like anybody I wrestled. Josh Barnett's Bloodsport is not a grappling event. It's similar to Lucha Underground. I'm not a fan of it. I like the Great North Wrestling Cage Wars events that we held 2 events inside of an MMA cage. I fought Rene Dupree on the first one, Max Testosterone on the second one. Harry Smith was also on the first one. This fake fighting on a platform, that's just stupid to me. I'd rather, if you're going to do fake MMA or pre-planned MMA, I'd like to see it in an MMA cage where there's no spring. Just like this stupid Raw Underground, there's a spring. It's just fake fighting on a wrestling ring with the same spring. Do it in an MMA cage. Patrick J is sad about Animal. Are we firing Great North Wrestling back up? As I just said, Stanley, they're locking us down further here in Canada. It's not like the US where the rates are higher than here and they're opening stuff up. Things are not that bad here and they're locking us down further. But Great North Wrestling is presenting the Forest of Fear next month. Be there in the forest.